not to go to the movie. You just stand at the gate and you just watch a real life movie. The ghetto is a party, man.
The godless and vacuous response of the wicked to make something up, to stem real-life holiness, was comedy gone wrong on every level. Inane laughter to deceive their own minds was the best they offered. Under the tenure of the wicked, slavery of the mind imprisoned the spirits, as the souls of the children of men were like puppets on a string. Captivity within inequality caused there to be no equality within the freedom promoted by pseudo-religious politics. The final chapters of pseudo-religious politics within the final generation of darkness were documented for all to see. Across the fallen world, pseudo-religious political slavery encompassed the entire human race. The different degrees of the same downfall were revealed. On the Angel Allah was unmoved by the parliamentary enthusiasm for Luciferian parties. In line with the wicked, Parliament was filled with shifty-eyed hoodlums more concerned with having full bellies and empty genitals. Qualities of quiet graciousness, coated within a lack of pretense, banned by an absence of arrogance, were nowhere in sight. Low-minded expectations influenced pseudo-political perceptions. They subconsciously looked for evidence that confirmed their beliefs to what they told themselves they believed about one love nation. The good news for us was that faith through the ages always stood above the surrender of pseudo-political reason. As the foolish in heart at the back of the queue, they wanted heaven to do them a favour. One Love Nation did not know what the favour was. We knew who the wicked were. They were commanded to do us a favour. We said quite seriously, "Jog on." Then we said into their still and stunted silence, "Are you attempting to use the silence to exercise a deliberate ignorance of mine? Or are you attempting to use the silence to provoke me to very great annoyance?" The last time I walked in the world, I was born and raised in the ghetto. Carliani was the one who placed the One Love Nation Rasta flag for peace over the third temple, which was on hallowed turf on Holy Trinity Road at football's grey cathedral. From the man in the face of common celestial sense, there was the mantra of, "Do it, if it makes you feel happy." With gentleness after centuries of brutality against them, the mothers of us all needed to be re-educated to the value of what they placed into the world. When the devil came for the minds, hearts, bodies, and decanted essence of the spirits of sacred women, he did not jog about as he went for the soul. The fallen one planted a seed within the Eden narration, inside the delicate vessel where he should have not. To take the lower mind of a woman away from the tickle in her fanny, the serious pleasure of the decanted essence of heaven within them all needed to be redescribed. For this reason, to redeem the woman and her child, my granddad left the hero of the human race in heaven and sent me into the world instead. There were those who did not want to believe that my matchless ferocity was more Genghis Khan than Jesus Christ. Those were the ones who believed the carnal mind was at the height of everything. I kept things as simple as Archangel told me to when I was a child. Quite simply, the big problem across the world was there were women who were willfully blinded by the tickle. Within the height of my celestial attention, I said to all the women of the world, "Come, follow me, or follow the tickle." Ecstasy without remorse is at the beginning of my words. Intoxication of life is the door opened by them. There is no emotional or psychological hangover attached to them. The stupor of life delivered by them is into never-ending. Swallow what I say, and you will approach the illusion of death, and like me, you will never die. That is all I need to say on the matter of life, of the tantalization of the tickle. Example was put to practice. My truth into practice brought happiness. To have been within the company of women who truly loved me energized the fires of glory. Yes, I was flash, and yet I could also be annoying with my perfection. I said to the wicked, "Where are the poor?" as those who suffered from a poverty of language and a poverty of spirit ran out the door into the everlasting darkness of their own awareness. When the dark angel Lucifer could no more take the perfection of my silent vibe, he said to himself in his blue-tongue confession, "I am not the Christ, I am the King of Lies." Then, because he felt really bad at telling the truth, he kicked me to death with my very expensive and fashionable Rockport shoes. Mum told me not to take life personally. From the deepest levels of life, Mum said life was my energy coming back to me through everybody. She said it would blow my lower mind to realize all the acts of violence unforeseen through time upon my royal person until I died. When I died, I wondered, should the dying be forgotten about or the way they died? Once I was dead, it caused my naked eyes to see for certain the dark soul that was the lie of life. As grandson of the first light eternal, I needed to be kicked to death. If I did not die, Planet Football would never have come to everlasting life. When I returned to life, all experienced the day of my judgment. Once given a final choice, the tragedy of divine comedy was that the one closest to the truth from the seat of judgment preferred to play within psychotic waters. The dark one was the eternal lesson for all who refused to play on top of the mountain. Anyone like Lucifer who had a problem with how I played the beautiful game was told to put their hand up as a clear target for miracle practice. Within life set into the temporal and secular world, I was beyond the thoughts of carnal passions. The lower mind could not hear me. The lower mind could not hear itself. There was a specific frequency, energy, and vibration needed to align with my psychological and emotional love to ignite the divine spark of what I am. Miracles were not good enough for some back in the day. Evil was kicked off the planet. The whole world sang and danced. From how it was from time to time, my grandfather appeared for the 10th time out of nowhere. And that, as they said, was that. Time and eternity, along with angels and men, witnessed the event horizon. Before that, I had a story to tell about the biggest hoax in global public relations that no one wanted to hear. That was all apart from D3, Andrew Kemp, and Doug Williams, who were all ears. I witnessed and took pictures of the construction of the Third Temple before I was anointed there in the year 2000. It was the central location in the end-time narrative. It was the focal point for the football world to elevate out of itself, to know the love that walked there as a soul and Messiah. The anticipation and warning given was without equivocation. The one drop that re-energized the world was the resurrection shuffle of Shakespeare reggae by One Love Nation. Who did not welcome the justification by faith and sanctification by grace of divine justice? The transformative period of peace and righteousness spread like a firestorm in a forest of trees made of petrol. A practical utopia was what every child deserved. People lived longer once poverty within every form was banished. My words were the destroyers of destruction, and I wielded them by divine magic. In the blink of an eye, the madness of the fallen world of pseudo-religious politics was instantly forgotten within a world of resplendence. The final assessment of our worldly lives was what I presented. Indescribable emotions tore out of all as the knowledge of my grandfather filled the world to overflowing. Unparalleled peace spoke its own language out of the great silence. Heaven in the world was recognized through the divine magic duo in the band of two called One Love Nation. The Conquest Hospital in Hastings on the ridge in St. Leonard-on-Sea was the place D3, Andy, Doug and me came together. Staff spoke to me with such honesty that it caused pseudo-religious politics to be a thing spoken of only in Puerto Rico within the toilets of dangerous sailors. When placed under the care of the staff at the Conquest Hospital, the real heroes of the National Health Service needed to be known. The weight of life placed over people by the powers behind the grand illusion almost stopped my breath. To listen every day to real-life stories spoken from hearts tormented by everyday life, of life that did not have to be, caused me to shut my mouth to listen without interruption. D3, Andy, Doug and me were witness to the love I brought from heaven into the world as their love for me tore out of their hearts. The source of my treasure stored up in heaven where it could not be ruined, I placed into the world through my love for my grandfather. Within the band of brothers I met in hospital, there were insightful stories from them all. To have read Plato's Republic as a boy prepared me for all the stories of the world. When pseudo-religious politics imagined that it stood within my presence within human beings, I was grounded. When the grand illusion of persecution and oppression was removed from my soul after I left hospital, I soared into endless elevation. Everything said by the professionals within a badly designed self-image at the head of thought control in the health industry was said to protect serious flaws. For the safety of all, I placed a disclaimer between One Love Nation and the carnal mind. Because we had the very best intentions for mankind, our lives were pushed to the limit. To rise forever above the world, it was time for us to be exceptionally spectacular. Despite all the chat from every voice of authority around the world, there was no one who said they were going to save us. When all the words ever said by every authority were placed together into one bag of buckets, it was seen that mad bollocks had been chatted for ages. The divine moment approached to cut the wings of the fallen world of pseudo-religious politics away from myself, without harming anyone else, was to soar inside myself into the kingdom of the soul. It was time for me to be forever present on the outside of what I always was inside my secret yesterdays into every tomorrow. The wicked were not very quick into picking up on what was blatantly obvious. They caused me to stamp on their toes in order to straighten their crooked feet. They should have made the playing field level. They should have put the goalposts back. They should have played ball. And yet, they were called wicked for good reason. Although I was paid in full before the journey started, To get paid for every word I said into the world was always the plan. When the world around me crash-landed on top of my naked physicality, the plan was revealed to Doug Williams in hospital. Doug Williams was a silent superhero. He said he was taking his friends tiger fishing on the Zambezi River. His granddaughter says quizzically, "You can't fish for tigers." I knew Doug was an interesting person before we struck up a conversation. He was a person in a position to be able to change quantity into quality. What One Love Nation produced was quality into eternity all day and all night long. What was needed to be placed into the news of the world was information that was never going away. The good news was that the world was a gullible market and the majors did not want the minnows to own it. If they knew about the endless power of David versus Goliath, they would have shut themselves down before we shut them all down. From plans made in the hospital, we changed quantity into quality around the world and promoted the production of it to all the scattered children of men. Doug was told the shallow words said to me from the mind of a powerful man. The words marked time which circled within the contours of my private mind. They were said to me before the showbiz world insisted I was sent to prison. Though they were bitter words, they were not meant as a barb by the man who said them. They were said by a man who was positioned between a rock and a hard place. The lawyer they had as their mouthpiece against me was a decent man in a bad situation. To look back at the £6 million I asked for was like them looking at a pile of chump change in retrospect to the true cost to their souls. "We have never given a black person so much money" was one reason they gave me insight to my endless potential in those days. It was not the time to become unhinged to explain the fierce love for the unseen heritage of the Scottish side of me. Instead, they paid for much more than what was asked for. What really touched my sensibilities was when they said my words needed to be censored. Then, before I would be allowed to speak in the faces of the great British public of many immigrants, they said I needed to be chaperoned. I held my peace at the time. I placed it within 7 seconds towards a countdown within another time. The company insisted I was returned to the ghetto where they said they found me. Before my return to being a street corner general, they believed a stop-off in prison and an extraordinary long high-risk bail and probation period would help me to cool my pickles. The top lawyer worked on behalf of a knight of the realm. The global corporation who insisted on my journey away from their bad spirits said to me very carefully after 10 years of created imprisonment, "Mav, what we've done to you is not moral, yet it is legal." I said to Doug as he sat on his bed in hospital. I slowed down and relaxed and de-stressed in prison. It was effortless as I wrote a book and short story screenplay called Don't Get Mad, Don't Get Even, Get Everything. My, how Doug chortled at the spirit of irony and his part in the retelling of my fantastic story. I once delved into the atmosphere of 3 chapters of Doug's life. His esoteric pathways were an excellent journey into my own mind. Not one word of one line of thought was wasted on me, because I travelled through those corridors so many times. Doug revealed the depths of the things he saw of those who had nothing and looked forward to less. They were powerful insights of life that needed to be dealt with, so that the instances that caused them to be were retarded. The poetic slant that ran through Doug's life engaged me. Every motion reminded me of the workings of the universe within me. There were great descriptions with simple words to colour the scenes of high life within the low life I had lived inside the subtext of my imagination. Everything about the life I saw of Doug was experienced on the screens of the galactic TV. The quadraphonic reality within expanded Doug's life into the status of natural superhero. The special effects within the internal mind movie that Doug's life evokes were beyond many things that Hollywood produced as high-costing forgotten shows. I was touched by the hidden life of another soul. I could go on and on about what was revealed to the cosmic pen, guided by the hand of the writer's soul. As our lives combined and unravelled, the place where my spirit and soul had always been between heaven and the world was revealed as the galactic centre of the multiverse. From our hospital beds was sown the motion of how we were going to entertain every soul within the war of the football worlds. Before then, I had a private conversation with the dark angel Lucifer in the open. I said to the beast, what refusal of glory would cause a divine entity to want everyone else to stew like chickens within an unholy chicken broth? Lucifer, in what unholy hell did you believe was going to happen within the very same moment you were expelled from heaven for cooking up those unsavory plans? Can you believe you would be daft enough to prepare a feast of fast food to make humanity sick quick for no profit at all? With an unholy broth made in hell's kitchen for my people humanity to consume, did you really believe you knew something about cooked food that I did not? Of course, for him to try to cook up an answer once I had spoken eternal words to the dark angel Lucifer was of no consequence in face of the breath of magnificence. I cooked his goose in that unholy chicken broth of illegal ingredients that he tried to dish up for everybody else except himself. In other words, the Dark One got to stew over his bad mood for a very long time. Old Blackheart was well upset when it was explained to him simply that it is impossible to make a chicken stew out of chicken shit. Because he had shit for brains within Hell's Kitchen, it blinded him to the distance it took for the master chef to turn up to cook his goose. And yet, as the last 2,000 years have revealed, the goose of the dark angel Lucifer is well and truly cooked by the fragrances of the eternal victory. And still he cooks away over roasting hot fires in a way that benefits everyone, except him. Playing out the poetic apocalypse was fun. When I met my band of brothers in the Conquest Hospital, I received direction into this time from every one of them. The everlasting love between us was instant. Days before we were banded together, we had no idea of each other's existence. I was always the friend they did not know they had. Doug and his network were the priceless arm to the operation. Life spread across the world from our connection at the Conquest Hospital. It caused the world to look once more at what came out of those who were dying while they gave life to the world. There were words I could not say into those moments to cause men to get up and walk. To put the hospital out of business all of a sudden would have had all eyes on me in a way I would not have been down with. What the world saw as fame, I knew to be a disease. Fame was to be the capstone of glory, of endless eternity. When it came to my time to leave the hospital, it was a bittersweet moment. The atmosphere was filled with high emotion. At that time, I did not tell the guys that I was the grandson of the First Light Eternal. And yet, Every one of my band of brothers felt the solid presence of the never-ending love of my grandfather. D3, Andy, Doug and me were the gang of four who made being sick a pleasure. Real people and real conversations were my passion. Real people and real conversations amongst the professional world of health were rare during the period of spiritual transition. It was amongst the unhealthy where I found real life. Adam Zindani in the band Stereophonics was a mate of mine from back in the day. The song Maybe Tomorrow was rooted in my life in a way that needed years to explain. Andrew Kemp was in the bed to the left of me once a stereophartic civil servant departed after he had miraculously appeared. The stereophartic gave the Stereophonics a run for their money with the toilet offering of, "You gotta go there to finish what you do." The owners of Wobbly Guts ended up on our ward. D3 was the guy in the bed opposite me when there is nowhere left for my body to go. Since time and eternity spoke clearly to me, I listened to every word from D3 as gospel. D3's wife offered me a bottle of electrolyte. It was received with thanks. D3 gave me the pillow that caused my sleep that first night to be a sweet one. All these years later, and heaven has not forgotten his great kindness. D3 was the daddy of our wing. He watched so many come and go, and yet, for 2,000 years now, D3 has never once left my heart. Doug Williams was to the right of D3. I had the bed with the view in the corner of D-Sham ward. Before he left the hospital, the stereophartic civil servant suddenly occupied the bed to my left. One morning, the man farted with cherambic intensity. He farted the longest, loudest and laziest fart I ever heard, as if he did not give a shit about the world. It was as if he did not give a shit either about whether or not he survived to the end of the long and rancid mark of gas. The man was forced to sign the Official Secrets Act to gag him from talking about all the shit he knew. It had to come out somewhere, and I was fortunate to be a witness to the metaphorical sound of it all. Remnants of his DNA were left on the toilet floor. The night shift tried to cope with his preliminary and quite explosive night shit of an accident as an introduction to our ward. It was only fair to give equal air to his stories within the mini-city that was the hospital. From cleaners to porters to doctors and nurses to patients to consultants, I saw no separation within the organism of nations that work together for the common good. And yet, the human side of me could have separated myself from the stereophartic civil servant within any instant. The company I was in yielded an insightful view into a period of life I had ignored. People spoke to me about a pandemic that I seemed to have missed out on as I focused on football. I trawled a quick look online to discern the spiritual advice given to the multi-ethnic, multicultural society of the great British public of many immigrants at the time. The Archbishop on the Angel Isle said, in a clear message, "If you want to love how Jesus did, get vaccinated, get boosted." The stories of goats and sheep and Wellington boots on the wall were insightful and spicy, yet a tad Levitical for my liking. The civil servant told me that his niece received 5 promotions in 15 months. Keep your head down was the advice to young women in those days of how to get on in Parliament. In between the lines, there was no suggestion of blowjobs being given out. Eat out to help out was an entirely different concept. The fallen world of pseudo-religious politics did not engage in serious self-reflection. Within its endless secrets, they could not recognize their terminal paranoia. Back in the day, People behind the scenes did not need to be intelligent to be able to sit at the head of fallen governments. All they needed was money, a filthy back door, and corrupt pseudo-religious politicians. Years of being yes people gained the deceived promotion into the driving seat of life, with a blindfold under the illusion that life was easier by telling lies. To build inner strength to improve emotional intelligence caused the need for emotional logic to be engaged. Only then could unpleasant situations in life be addressed within clear forward motion. It was not easy for people under the regime of pseudo-religious politics to engage a problem-solving mode of behavior. Without psychological health in tandem with emotional logic, it was impossible to find reasonable and continuous satisfaction in dealing with the circumstances of living. Without both disciplines, the ability to perceive one's environment with relative freedom from all forms of mundane enslavement of the mind was impossible. I observed as every decision made under a chained mind distorted the individual reality. A spin-off of the condition of misalignment was that all who received information as advice from such a mind needed unvarnished tools of discernment. For the disillusioned to believe they were in control was dangerous for everyone. The emptiness within that people could not fill with themselves, they looked elsewhere for it to be filled. I empathized with all of them. Andrew Kemp saved me from the civil servant. Andy's tales of life flavoured my deep waters. I did not mention to Andy who and what essence was left on the bed before his arrival. Andy shared a degree of life with me that could never be broadcast for the vacuous appreciations of those who controlled the news into the mainstream. Certain people believed they looked down on Andy from their lovely houses and great big cars. They had the protection of legal services and teams of accountants to keep him homeless. In the dead of night in places not advertised for the lard-arsed tourist, Andy used his skills to keep them safe and warm, while the thought of his existence was unconsidered. After years of training, Andy could drive anything, shoot anything and blow anything up. He could drive a 60-ton army vehicle backwards down a motorway at 60 miles an hour. When he could have taken out the whole house of cards without leaving any forensic evidence, instead, Andy slept on Eastbourne Beach for 3 weeks until he was finally housed. The marathon snoring sessions by the other two members of the gang was something else. The power of the breath of D3 was incredible. During one unforgettable night that no one wanted to remember, there were sounds of extreme Japanese-style violence. Nurses watched open-mouthed through the night as the curtains moved along with the motion of the vibe to the internal disturbances. The sounds of the snores were reminiscent of fight scenes in the movie Kill Bill that involved the crazy 88s. D3's wife asked me to perform a reenactment of the night. Let's just say she was frightened at my powers of recall. D3 described his serious condition to a friend. His friend said, "Why the use of vile language?" D3's language and humour reminded me of the great Hunter S. Thompson. D3's sentiments were not for those who did not want to know themselves within moments of heightened reality. Our small talk was insightful once the depth of our recent lives was shared. With a host of impressive images as backup, D3 knew how to rub down cooked food. Doug and Andy said they liked to get involved in the kitchen too. Before the vibe of the planet was all sorted, time and the lack of a yacht stopped me from experiencing food how I wanted. We spoke about food, although within those moments we were affected by our deep guts. Within all the savoury thoughts of culinary delights mentioned, Nurse Chloe listened as her taste buds salivated. I said into the mix, my mum used to rub down cooked food for one of UB40's long-time roadies. She was good, and yet the best Caribbean restaurant I visited was when Showbiz royalty took me to a Trinidadian place in Camden, North London. Normski, who was once the boyfriend of Janet Street Porter, came up to our table to say a quick hello. D3 said I should undertake a tour of the Greater and Lesser Antilles, sample the food, and write a book. The idea sounded so good that it was placed on my bucket list. D3 said, test the spirits while you are in your weakness. I said to D3, you are correct. There is an emotional and psychological war against me that is part of the grand illusion. It does not exist within my reality, although it continually tries to kill my spirit. If my mind became like the children of the lost, all would be lost. Within the shadows, the force of negativity clings onto nothingness to sustain what it is not. My weakness is needed for me to draw a line across my patience. In my strength, wicked souls will bolt for Bolton much faster than Usain Bolt could bolt for Bolton if he stood less than 100 meters from Bolton town centre. Everything said to D3 was said out of the esoteric property of the learned. I did not hold back with him or with any of my other friends on the ward. I watched at the ease of which my golden words were absorbed. The world around me became so small everywhere I found myself. All the deceptive words and tragic allure used by the wicked before One Love Nation, where did he get them? What chaos was it that the mad spoke of, and why could it not be spoken of in my presence? The wicked feculated at the urgency of the hour. While in my physical weakness, I saw how easy it was to remove strife and discord from the world from a hospital bed. What battle for power, territory, or ideology could touch the endless love of the Bexhill Massive? When I slept on the floor at the Conquest Hospital as Lord Commander of the football universe, it was an experience that connected me vicariously with my people's humanity. To subsume the vibe of the archangel of the football heavens gifted me a certain frame of mind. Everyone who spoke to me in hospital did not realize they spoke to the throne of glory. I heard the frequency, energy, and vibrations of all who had no respect for themselves. That they tried to place me beneath them did not work in the slightest. I said to D3 that we were all equal, and told him the eternal reason why. That we met was one of the great moments in life. I had so many moments like them to know the value of our meeting within those times. What had already been produced from our brief interaction revealed a depth and quality of life many did not dare to dream. The real-life experience we had forged the qualification of our occupation into eternity. He easily understood what the alleged greatest within the world of pseudo-religious politics refused to understand. D3 was brilliant to me and my grandfather from the very first moment he introduced himself. Because of his vibe and spectacular honesty, I spoke to D3 and took him on the journey of the first time as a human being at age 11 that I was conscious of going to heaven. In those moments, I saw that every moment I was alive was every moment I needed to experience. Every breath I experienced was taken with 100% surety that my granddad placed me where he needed me to be. I watched D3's face as he listened to my insides. I beheld the rapture he experienced within. Those moments of heightened awareness for me were unforgettable. The serenity of peace over D3's face was exceptional. The silent wonder within his smile and the wonder in his heart at the knowledge of my grandfather energized me from the outside of what D3 perceived within. I saw the beauty of eternity as it gazed at itself within the 7 eternal mirrors of life that hang forever from the tree of time. The feedback from D3 in light of my heavenly projection brought a flood of tears to my heart within the cosmic reflection. D3 said out of a serene calm to me, "Your words touch the soul as they are beyond poetry. They are made of a substance sharper than steel, yet are covered within such gentleness. You explain the sound of creation perfectly with the beautiful tone of your voice. You are the same as the man who saw infinity. You are divine breath in human form, delivered within abject simplicity." As a Brummie, D3's words made me feel as if I was someone exceptional. The sound of my true voice was put away as my insides were suppressed by teachers at junior school. The advice we were given as little coloured children said we would be killed by the fumes from Spaghetti Junction. They said if we survived that, the sound of the worst accents in the country would hold us back. They said if we navigated all of that, then we would either succumb to the drugs or that the bullshit would consume us. Lifetimes were relived over days in stories that turned into lasting treasures. Once our individual moments were placed into the shared reality, the new life we had between us became endless. What I saw as a game of football played in my sight could not be described by use of human words. D3 liked to watch football. He said he more enjoyed the game as he loved to see his son enjoy playing. D3 wondered for a time if he would be a football orphan. He asked me if a team would reach out to play for us on Planet Football. To keep it simple, I said to D3, the team that is ours from the astonishing villa in the football heavens is called Light Fixers Unlimited. We play the second leg of the great game against a team called My Canticle Divided. It is a pleasure for me now to share a little of what we experienced during the period of spiritual transition. Once grace was revealed for the salvation of the world, our forward reality was created and lived within those moments. The health of the whole of the country was connected, and I was connected to it all as an undercover health professional. On my last morning in hospital, I woke up determined. There was an attempt to drain the lifeblood out of me during the night that was made by the agents of darkness. As soon as the cover of darkness took hold, creatures of the night came out on the ward. They walked over to my bed to have a look that it was really me. In secret towards them, I smiled that half smile that I had to make them know as the day star out of the eternal dawn, I knew the secrets of the multiverse. One of them snuck by me and, as a dripping form of Chinese torture, left the tap on by my bed. It did not work, as they did not know some of my best mates were Chinese. Was it cheeky of me when I took the piss out of madness, as finally I sang off key on film as a football chant, "Satan, Satan, give us a wave, Satan, give us a wave, Satan, Satan, give us a wave, Satan, give us a wave." Shh. I did not think so. Did I give a shoes and socks about the thoughts of anyone as I killed the spirit of the devil? I suspect not. Was I pleased when the whole world was drawn to the endless light of one love nation? The hell I was. What wasn't there to enjoy about life on this most beautiful of planets at the pivotal moment of human history? On the 7th day of the 10th month, in the year 2027, I spoke the truth. At the event horizon, the hearts of sheep were separated from the jawbones of goats. In the last great football war, I was exactly what my human mother did not want to see. I was bad and terrible against all that was an offence to the thought of heaven. From my sickbed by a determined thought, the fallen world of pseudo-religious politics was put out of business before a word came out of my mouth. As an unhinged brummie in the old days, with an accent that was far from posh, I used righteous thought to separate the senses of unholy Martians from themselves. I told no one openly about the matchless ferocity of the colours of the noise of my eternal power. Some thought my tact was so 4th century to use the biggest Bible I could find to smash the jawbone of the head Martian until he turned the other cheek. Killjoys, I call them. What was the perpetual battle between truth and deception that was previously spoken by the mad? As I recall, it was D3 who described me best years before the moment. He said out of a dream, "Mav, I saw the finger of your granddad. He touched your finger. You had a baseball bat, and the world had 7 seconds. I thought, ooh, I've been rumbled."
If it was all right then to crucify Jesus Christ, then why not today? Why not? Why not? Why not? Born and raised in the ghetto, I can show you a few things you don't know. Born and raised in the ghetto, born and raised in the ghetto, I can show you a few things you don't know. Born and raised